next we have Dr. Patricia Clement, who is a postdoctoral researcher at Ghent University Hospital in Belgium. She is an open science enthusiast specialized on ASL and is involved in projects on normal variability of cerebral perfusion, advanced MR imaging for glioma, and the development of ASL BIDS. And today she's going to be talking to us about brain imaging data structure, or BIDS, and how you can convert your data set into that format. Thank you so much.
Thank you for introducing me. I cannot see my own face yet, so I'm not sure if the sharing will work already, but I'll try.
Yeah, we can't see your video, but the sharing seems to work.
Okay, so you can see my slides?
Yes, we can see your slides. They're not in presenter view yet.
No, they will be now.
Yes, perfect.
Perfect, okay. Okay, good morning or afternoon or night, wherever you are in the world. Ask you to start the video as well. Okay, perfect. My name is Patricia Clement. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Ghent University Hospital and Ghent University in Belgium. And today I'll be talking a little bit about BIDS and also a little bit about cakes. So it will be a bit of a lighter talk today. Many of you might have heard about BIDS already. BIDS is the brain imaging data structure, and Camille has already introduced it a little bit in her talk. First question would be, well, why would you be using BIDS? So I took a case sample. Those are three researchers that I know well, so they agreed that I've been using their pictures. So you have three researchers, one in the Netherlands, one in Germany, and one in Italy, and they all have a different MRI scanner at their facility. And all of the three of them, they're scanning healthy volunteers or patients for a certain study. And they store their data in the way they are used to. The first one, for example, will do it per subject, per volunteer. Another one will do it based per modality, while the third one just retrieves what comes from the scanner and keeps it that way without even having a very good structure. So everything goes well, they have their paper, they go to a conference like MRI Together, and they see each other's work and they think, oh, we're doing more or less the same thing. Maybe it's interesting to start sharing our data and do something together. Well, very nice. They all sent their data to the poor guy in Germany who took up this job. And the poor guy in Germany, well, he starts thinking, oh, what is this? This is horrible. Everything is different. What did the guy in the Netherlands do? How did the guy in Italy stored his data? I'm very much confused. Well, after a while, it gets even worse. The guy in Italy, he decides that he had enough of academics. We fully understand. So he quits. So the guy in Germany, well, he cannot even ask information to the guy in Italy anymore. So he's completely left over with all kinds of data and all kinds of different ways of saving different structures, different folders, and he has no clue how to start with his analysis. It drove him mad. I think many of you have heard of these kind of situations, maybe experienced them. Well, luckily now there are there's actually a whole community of researchers who want to avoid this situation. So they started developing the BIDS. The BIDS, or the brain imaging data structure, is a specification or some kind of a handbook or cooking book to show you how you can properly store your imaging data. Well, it's not only MRI or imaging data. There are many other types of neurological data as well. How you can store it, which type of structure you need in your folders, and which extra information is required. And I compare it with a good recipe book because it's more or less like a recipe book. And I'll show you why. So I think you all understand why BIDS is very important and very much needed to avoid this kind of situations. But the question is, how can we use it? A lot of researchers I've been talking to are like, okay, I'm very interested, but I have no clue where to start. And I usually say, well, keep it as simple as possible. It's like when you want to start baking cakes and you want to become a very great cake baker, you have to start with the simplest cake of them all. It's the same for your BIDS data set. So you start with a simple cake, and after a while, you make it more fancy, you add extra things, you learn new techniques, you make it better and better, and well, at the end, you're like an expert in converting your data sets into BIDS, even the most complex ones, including techniques such as ASL, which is, to be honest, a very complex one to be able to convert into BIDS. So how do we do it? Well, step by step. The first step is, well, you need to read your recipe, and that's the same for BIDS. There's a whole huge document. Well, it's still old version here. See, it's version 1.6, but at this point they have already version 1.9. And this is the specification or the cookbook itself. You can find it very easily online. There's a lot of information there about BIDS, what is BIDS, how to acknowledge BIDS, how to start with it, which types of data needs to be done, etc. And I usually advise here to start at the beginning. If you go in the chapter here, BIDS specification, you will see that there are many, many subfolders. Just start from the beginning. Don't dive immediately in the technique that you're interested in, because you will miss so much crucial information and you will get stuck after a while. So in general, this is more or less what Camille already showed you. This is how a BIDS data set should look like. And in the specification, the information is in there how you get to this point. BIDS data set includes, of course, MRI data, which is a Nifty format. But each Nifty file also has an accompanying JSON file. And this JSON file is the file where you keep all the information about the data acquisition itself. In the BIDS specification, it's made very clear which information should be in there and how it should be defined. For example, it includes factors such as the field strength, the type of sequence, the inversion time, echo time, etc. Everything is included there. But not everything needs to be written down. Some of these fields are required, of course, because these are the fields that you really, really need to be able to compare data sets or to analyze your data sets even. Other fields are only recommended, and then you have optional fields that are probably less relevant or less important, to be sure. Here again, I would advise to store as much information as possible. It's not because some parameter is less important for you that it might be that might be important for another researcher with another research question who will be using your data set. And besides these data, so the images and the JSON files, you also have data description files where all the information is included about your data set. For example, is there an ethical committee? Are there publications already that came out of it? Who are the contributors, etc.? And also a whole file that you can use to provide information about your participants. So not only the participant naming, but maybe ages, the gender, blood values, etc. That's all possible to add there as well. So once you read the whole recipe book or the specification, you will get more insight on how to do this. So currently we are at BIDS version 1.9, and I provided an overview of all the modalities, MR modalities, but also other types of modalities that are included already. And as you can see, it's already a lot. If you're using EEG, MEG, you can also start using BIDS, PET data as well, microscopy. But additionally, you also will see that there are still many techniques that are not yet included. And you can see on the bottom of my slide, these are all techniques that the BIDS community is still working on. So if you have expertise in one of these techniques, feel free to get in touch with the BIDS team. You can definitely make a contribution by helping writing the specification or reviewing the specification. So once we read the recipe book, we need to do the next step. You know how to do it now for your techniques. You need to do the next step. You need to gather your tools. And when making a bake, this is a Thermomix. Many people do it that way, but you have many other types of tools as well. You have a lot of choice. Well, it's more or less the same with BIDS. There are many tools out there on GitHub online that you can use to start converting your data set into BIDS. I added here some examples, but an easy GitHub search will help you find many more. So these tools will help you convert it, but that doesn't mean that everything will be included as well. I'll come back to that later. You can also manipulate your BIDS data sets with Python or MATLAB, or are there many techniques or many tools already developed to help you do that? There's also a very useful tool that can help you validate your data set, which means that if you have converted your data set, this tool will help you define or decide if your data set is completely BIDS compatible or if there are still some issues going on. I will come back to this tool later, but it's also a very useful tool. And then, of course, there are many, many post-processing software tools, for example, for MRI that are already BIDS compatible, meaning that if you have converted your data sets into BIDS, you can easily put them in the input part of the software, and you will be able to analyze the data very easily. Again, here I added some examples like FreeSurfer and ExploreSL, but there's a whole website which is named BIDS Apps, and there you can find a lot of information, a lot of tools as well that are already BIDS compatible. So we have our tools now. Next thing is we have to gather our ingredients. So when we bake a cake, we need eggs, probably chocolates. Well, in my case, I would like chocolates, sugar, etc., butter. And that's the same for our data sets. We have to gather our data set. The first thing that you will gather, of course, is your data set in the structure that you have on your own computer. But additional information is also required. So you will try to gather all information you have on the volunteers. If you're doing a good if you have a good attitudes when you're doing research, you already have these kind of documents, so it will be very helpful. And another thing that is very important is the one on the right. This is a scanner, a sequence protocol from the scanner, from my scanner, the one I'm using. This information is also very interesting and helpful because for many techniques, you don't have all acquisition parameters in the DICOM header. So in some cases, you might lose even some of these parameters. So it's very important when you start doing a study to retrieve the protocol file, store it somewhere safe as well. And that's why we actually would advise to do the BIDS conversion as soon as possible after the data acquisition. Well, I have a case sample from my own lab. I think 50 years ago, there was a researcher doing an MRI study on a whole group of healthy volunteers. He acquired all the data, but then the researcher left, of course, and nobody touched the data anymore. Now, 10, 15 years later, we decided to look into the data again, start doing some analysis. And well, yeah, guess what? We got stuck because we don't have all the data acquisition information anymore. And in the meantime, the scanner got upgraded, the parameters and the protocols were changed, so we cannot retrieve it anymore. And then difficulties start. So try to convert your data set as soon as possible into BIDS format to be sure that all information, all necessary information is stored together and is safe. Okay, and then we have to bake our cake. So we have our ingredients, we put it in our tools, in our baking tools, like, as I said, the BIDS coin, and that tool will start doing the conversion. Of course, I would advise to first read the manual of the tool because often it's not that easy as just input and then you have an output. But if everything goes well, the tool will convert your data set into Nifty. It will also organize your files in the correct bit structure, and it will add the JSON files with all the data parameters from the DICOM header for all imaging files that you have included. I added here a link to another MRI Together hands-on session that we did a few years ago, in which we helped the people who joined the session to start converting a data set. If you want to try it, feel free to use this one to test it and try it for first time. So we baked our cake. Next thing we have to do is try if everything went well, because, well, we're not very sure, right? And for that, I already talked about the BIDS validator. It's very easy to find the BIDS validator online. If you Google it, BIDS validator, you'll get there. It's quite easy. Sorry for the Dutch. I'm based in Belgium, so everything here is in Dutch. What you can do is very easily select your data set, and the BIDS validator will then look into the data sets and see if everything is BIDS compatible or not. So you do it, and then you get something like this. This is actually what you want to have. This is a data set that's completely compatible to BIDS. There are no issues. Congratulations, you've done it very well. You can now just use the data set, share your data set without problems. But usually you will get this. And this is the validator telling you that there are still errors and warnings in your data set. So it's not completely compatible to BIDS. I tried to give an overview here about errors and warnings. So the errors are the things that you really must change or adapt to be BIDS compatible. Those are usually errors in the naming of the file, in the structures of the file, or in the acquisition parameters that you added in the JSON files that are missing, but then the required ones only, the optional ones, for example, not. The warnings, I would advise you also to change them to make sure it's valid as well. But if it's not possible, that can happen. So it's not that much of an issue. But again, the more information you can put in your data set, the better it is. Okay, so you know what are the problems of your cake. Now you will try to decorate the cake a little bit to hide these kind of imperfections. So what you do, you start adding some extra files that were missing. For example, as I discussed earlier, a participant file, or the files, the README files or data description files, providing some information on the authors, on the license, etc. This information needs to be included as well, but usually this is done manually. Sorry. And the other thing you really need to start doing is update your JSON files. Like I said earlier, for some MRI techniques, not all data acquisition parameters are included in the DICOM header. So when you start converting it, after conversion, the validator may say that there are parameters missing. And then again, that's why you need a protocol file. You can easily use a protocol file to update your JSON files in your BIDS dataset to be sure that all necessary parameters are included. So when that is done, you just try it again, and hopefully this time you have a valid BIDS dataset. Be aware that first time you do this, you will probably have to reiterate this process a couple of times to get to a valid BIDS dataset. And again, it's also why I usually advise to start with a very easy dataset. Start, for example, with the only structural data from one volunteer, one session. Keep it simple to get used to it, and then you can add on extra subjects or volunteers, extra sessions, extra techniques. Because every technique often has additional requirements that you have to look up in the cookbook, which is a specification. So it takes you quite some time to get used to it. Start with the easy cake, and then you can grow to the bigger cakes. So yeah, you have a valid data set. Congrats, you can enjoy it. You can eat your cake, or you can start using your data set and you can share it with other people as well. But sometimes this happens. You try to make the cake again and again, it keeps on failing. Well, BIDS is not only a specification, but it's also a community that is providing a lot of extra tools to help you to use BIDS. There's been a whole part of the community working on a starter kit. It's a very easy starter kit you can find online, and it will help you with getting some extra information about BIDS. Some information, some guidelines, some tutorials, everything here is included. So it's a very helpful tool to start using it and to get to know BIDS better and BIDS conversion better. There's also a YouTube channel, by the way, if you are interested about BIDS and the process of developing BIDS data sets and how the specification was developed. It's very useful to look into these videos. There's also the BIDS examples. So every group who is working on a part of the specification is asked to provide a data set that is BIDS compatible. So if you go on the GitHub, you will find the BIDS examples data set, and there you can just take a look at a certain data set, look into the files, look into the structure. Sometimes it can be helpful to have an idea on how it should be structured, but it can also be helpful if you have problems with your own data set to look into these data sets and to see how it should be done. There's also, of course, many publications on BIDS. It's also very useful to read them. And then there's also a BIDS discussion forum on Mattermost. You can also have many things there, many discussions there, and you can ask your questions. And there's also one on, what's it called again, on Neurostars. There's a whole section on BIDS as well. Be aware that the community is quite big, so you get answers very soon, very quickly. So I would really advise you to dive into the community, and if you have questions, try to get some answers from others who have more experience in BIDS. Then I'm trying to click to the next slide. And if you want more BIDS, you're very interested, you like the project, you don't only want to use BIDS, but you want to start helping. There are still many people, many tasks to be done. So you can always help with joining a specification, to comment, to test it on your own data sets. There's also, you can also help with the starter kit to add some tutorials. You can help with bug reporting for the validator, or if you even creating some post-processing tools and you want to make it BIDS compatible, that's also very useful work. So feel free to contribute to the whole community. And my final message would be, go BIDS or go home. Thank you.